Shedeur Sanders was flat on the turf for the sixth time, and boos from the home crowd were starting to surface. The offense had stalled, the line was cracking, and it looked like another wasted season finale for Cleveland. Until it wasn't. In the second half, Sanders returned from the locker room with a calm fire in his eyes. His next drive? Precision, leadership, confidence. One scoring march after another. By the final whistle, the Browns had flipped the game. But it was in the post-game presser that Myles Garrett took the mic and flipped something bigger.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The perception of who Shedeur really is. When Garrett, fresh off a record-setting performance, singled out Sanders' composure and leadership, it wasn't just veteran praise, it was a signal. A new standard. Garrett's words echoed beyond the locker room, framing Sanders not as a rookie under pressure, but as a quarterback who earned the respect of one of the league's most feared defenders. In that moment, the Browns revealed a new identity. Resilient, unified, and finally anchored by leadership on both sides of the ball. Myles Garrett didn't wait long after the final whistle. Still drenched in sweat from a physically brutal showdown against the Bengals, he stepped up to the mic and made it very clear. This wasn't just another win. It was a statement. Not just for him, but for the entire team. Especially Shedeur Sanders. The Browns' star defensive end had just broken the NFL's single-season sack record, landing his 23rd sack with a kind of explosive force that's become his signature. But when asked about the moment, Garrett pivoted. He didn't bask in his own glory. Instead, he made a point to spotlight the young quarterback under center, who had just led the Browns to a second-half comeback few saw coming. There's a lot being said about Shedeur, Garrett told reporters, keeping his tone even but firm. People questioning his leadership, his toughness, what he showed out there tonight, after taking hit after hit and still coming back stronger in the second half. That's exactly the kind of guy I want leading this team. That wasn't lip service. Sanders had been sacked 6 times before halftime. The offense looked rattled, disjointed, and every snap felt like survival. But something shifted after the break. Garrett saw it. Everyone did. Shedeur didn't just stay standing. He took control. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, Sanders was orchestrating scoring drives with clockwork precision. His throws were sharper, his reads more confident, and his body language unshakable. Garrett made it clear this wasn't about stats anymore. This was about belief. The first half had been a mess. Sanders was constantly under siege. Pocket collapsed. Timing shattered. By halftime, criticism was already flying. Was he ready for this stage? Was he built for the NFL grind? Those voices got loud fast. But the second half turned into a different story. Sanders came out refocused, unfazed, and completely locked in. He led back-to-back scoring drives, nailed tight window throws, and kept the offense on schedule. No panic. No happy feet. Just calm execution. Each possession was a reminder. This kid has it. His poise under pressure, especially on third downs, completely changed the tone of the game. Garrett's praise didn't just validate that shift, it magnified it. Sanders didn't deflect. He acknowledged the rough start, but leaned into the lessons. It's about staying calm and trusting the guys around me, he said. We got dogs on defense, and when they keep giving us chances, we've got to deliver. He didn't frame it as a comeback. He saw it as a response, one that matched the intensity Garrett and the defense brought from the first snap to the last. And in doing so, he showed that leadership isn't just about clean stat sheets. It's about how you respond when everything's on fire. Sanders didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone matched his play. Steady, composed, intentional. I'm learning. I've still got a long way to go, he said, but nights like this, that's where it starts to click. He credited the offensive line for sticking with him, even after giving up multiple sacks. He called out his receivers for staying sharp. But most importantly, he pointed back to Garrett, praising the defense's ability to keep the game within reach. What stood out wasn't just his performance, it was the trust. The way veterans like Garrett spoke about him. the way the locker room responded to his leadership. This wasn't forced chemistry. It was earned. The matchup itself was expected to be a test. Division rival. High stakes. And early on, the Bengals came out swinging. Their defensive line overwhelmed the Browns' protection scheme, and for a moment, it looked like the game might spiral. But even as Shedeur got knocked around, the defense kept holding firm. Garrett was relentless, blowing up plays, pressuring the quarterback, forcing mistakes. His presence dictated the pace, and by the time the fourth quarter arrived, you could feel the momentum flipping. Then came the clutch moments. Sanders dropped dimes on 3rd and long. He found his rhythm in the red zone. And when the Bengals defense dared him to make the tough throws, he did, repeatedly. This wasn't just another regular season win. It was symbolic. For a team that's long battled inconsistency and skepticism, this was a performance that suggested a turning point. The Browns didn't just rely on one star, they leaned on each other. Garrett's record-setting sack didn't feel like an isolated moment. It felt like the culmination of a season where every snap, every push, every grind toward the quarterback built toward something bigger. Sanders' leadership under duress? That wasn't about one game. That was about shifting the tone for what this franchise expects from its quarterback going forward. Garrett circled back to that after the game. We've been talking about culture, about what it means to build something here that lasts, he said. This is what that looks like. You take your hits, you bounce back, and you finish. He made sure everyone knew. This wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving themselves right. And in the process, Garrett became more than just a defensive force. He became the team's North Star. His praise for Sanders wasn't some PR move. It was real, measured, intentional. And it sent a clear message. This is our guy. We're riding with him. The contrast between halves couldn't have been sharper. First half, frantic. Pressure everywhere. No time to breathe. Second half, control. Command. Confidence. Sanders didn't force it. He adapted. Made smarter reads. Adjusted protections. Slowed the game down when it needed to be. That kind of mental reset in the middle of a high-pressure game? That's rare. And it resonated not just with the fans, but with the team. When the quarterback believes, everyone else starts to believe too. By the end of the game, the Browns weren't just playing to survive, they were playing to win. Sanders didn't take the bait when asked about the criticism he's faced. It comes with the job, he said. But I've got teammates who believe in me. I've got vets who've done this for years. I'm just trying to do my part. There was no chest pounding, no told you so moment. Just gratitude and focus. That humility, paired with his toughness, is why Garrett's words hit so hard. It wasn't just that Shedeur played well. It's that he did it while taking the weight of expectations and turning it into fuel. There was a photo going around right after the game. Garrett towering over the Bengals quarterback, arms flexed, face stone cold. It wasn't just a sack celebration. It was the image of dominance, of a defender who knows he's rewriting history one play at a time. And while the cameras chased him post-game, Garrett didn't take the bait for a victory lap. He wasn't interested in centering himself. He redirected the narrative toward Sanders, again. That kind of gesture doesn't happen unless the respect runs deep. This wasn't performative praise. Garrett's been in this league long enough to know when a young player is either rising to the occasion or shrinking from it. And he saw something in Sanders that night that couldn't be ignored. Sanders, meanwhile, stood at the podium like a different man than the one who walked into the tunnel at halftime. No defensive posture. No excuses. Just composure. When asked about Garrett's praise, he nodded, paused, then gave credit right back. When you've got a guy like Myles leading by example, it pushes everybody. I just wanted to hold up my end. That moment, short and humble, spoke volumes. This wasn't about clout or headlines. Sanders knew what that one meant, and he knew who helped him get there. For a franchise that's lived through years of broken promises, quarterback experiments, and culture resets, the Garrett-Sanders connection felt different. The Browns have always had talent. But chemistry? Leadership? That's what's been missing. This game cracked that code. Garrett breaking records. Sanders proving he could bounce back from adversity. Veterans backing a young quarterback not just with words, but with trust. In the past, games like this slipped through the Browns' fingers. This time, they grabbed it, and it felt like the beginning of something instead of a one-off. You could tell Sanders was aware of the noise, the takes, the speculation about whether he was ready for the NFL, or if his college shine would fade under pro pressure. He didn't address it directly. He didn't have to. His calm demeanor, even after getting hit 6 times, said more than any quote ever could. He didn't try to play hero ball. He didn't implode. He adjusted. The difference in his second-half throws was impossible to ignore. Faster reads, more confident zip, and most of all, composure. He played like someone who wasn't afraid of the moment, even after everything had gone wrong. Garrett, back in front of reporters, spoke like someone who'd seen that transformation in real time. You see a guy take that many hits and still stay poised. That's not normal, he said. You don't coach that. That's just in you. He emphasized the mental side, the unshakable calm that separates rookies from leaders. Garrett has seen players with raw talent fold under pressure. But Sanders, he said, had the it factor, and that meant more to him than any fourth-quarter stat line. Garrett's leadership wasn't loud or flashy. It was intentional. That's why his words hit differently. Because he didn't have to say them, but he chose to. Shedeur's second-half turnaround started with a simple completion over the middle. Then another. Then a scramble to convert third and long. They weren't explosive plays. They were controlled, purposeful, and they built momentum. By the fourth quarter, the Bengals' defense looked gassed. Sanders, meanwhile, looked sharper. He extended plays with his legs, but never forced it. When he had to take a sack, he took it. When he saw an opening, he delivered. The Bengals sent pressure, trying to rattle him again. But Sanders didn't blink. He shifted protections, trusted his receivers, found rhythm where there had been none. This wasn't a shootout. It was a gritty, defensive-heavy slugfest, exactly the kind of game where quarterbacks often get exposed. And Sanders? He grew up in it. The game plan didn't change dramatically. The execution did. The Browns leaned on their defense to create opportunities, and Sanders capitalized on them. Every drive was earned. Every completion was deliberate. And when the Bengals tried to mount a comeback of their own, Garrett shut the door. Another sack. Another statement. And just like that, the Browns had their signature win. Sanders reflected on how hard the season had been, not just physically but mentally. There's pressure. Expectations. You feel it, he said. But it doesn't control me. You just keep working. He said he's still learning, still evolving. But he spoke with the calm of someone who knows he belongs. His words weren't scripted. They were real. You could sense the shift, not just in how the media viewed him, but in how the locker room did. That quiet leadership, paired with what he showed on the field, earned him something every rookie wants, but few get: respect. Garrett's record-breaking sack was the cherry on top. He exploded off the edge, blew past the left tackle, and brought the quarterback down with a level of authority that felt symbolic. He stood up, didn't gloat, just looked around like he knew exactly what he'd done. And the rest of the team fed off that energy. You could see it on the sidelines, coaches fired up, players rallying, momentum building. Garrett's dominance didn't just show up in stats. It changed the energy of the entire team. When Sanders was asked if he knew Garrett had set the sack record, he smiled. Of course. We all did. That's Myles. Then he paused. He's everything you want in a leader. He holds everybody accountable. And he's the reason we get second chances. That kind of mutual admiration isn't forced. It's built over time, through games like this, through mistakes, comebacks, and battles in the trenches. Sanders didn't just survive this one. He showed who he could become. Garrett wrapped up his comments with a message that hit beyond football. Leadership isn't just about how loud you are, he said. It's about how you show up. And tonight, Shedeur showed up. For a player with Garrett's stature, that line carried weight. He's not known for handing out praise casually. If anything, he's selective, intentional about who he puts his name behind. So when he backed Sanders that strongly, it meant something. It marked a changing of the guard. And Garrett knows the impact of that kind of gesture. A veteran stamping approval on a young leader sends a signal, not just inside the locker room, but across the league. This wasn't just another rookie getting a few kind words. This was Garrett, a face of the franchise, declaring that Sanders is the future. Sanders never played it up. He didn't lean into the hype. When reporters asked about the turning point in the game, he didn't pick a throw or a touchdown. He pointed to the team. Defense kept giving us the ball back. That's everything. It's the kind of response that makes teammates want to play for you. He wasn't trying to build a highlight reel. He was trying to win. And when it came down to crunch time, that mindset paid off. He spoke like someone who's had enough doubters for one lifetime, and finally let his play do the talking. But when given the mic, he brought it back to the basics. Protect the ball, trust the team, and execute. Over the past few seasons, Cleveland has been trying to find its identity. The pieces have come and gone, coaches, quarterbacks, expectations, but the results never stuck. There'd be flashes, but no foundation. This game was different. You could feel it from the second half on. Not just in the execution, but in the energy. A team that once unraveled under pressure suddenly looked composed. Veterans were locked in. Rookies stepped up. And nobody flinched. It felt like a team that knew who it was, or at least who it wanted to become. And that sense of direction? It's been missing from Cleveland football for years. Shedeur's ability to flip the script mid-game is what made this win so significant. A first half that saw him flat on his back more times than most rookies would survive became a second half showcase of mental fortitude. He didn't need a new game plan. He needed belief. And Garrett giving him that vocally and visibly seemed to unlock something. From there it was precision, third down darts, red zone calm, decisions that didn't scream rookie at all. That kind of in-game growth isn't typical. It's what separates short-term starters from franchise quarterbacks. And in that second half, Shedeur gave Cleveland a glimpse of what that could look like. The Bengals weren't just rolling over. They kept sending pressure. They tried to confuse coverage, collapse the pocket, force errors. And in the first half, it worked. But the difference was Sanders' response. He stopped playing rushed. He didn't chase the big play. He let it come to him. And that change in rhythm slowed the Bengals' defense just enough for Cleveland's offense to catch its breath. The final drives weren't flashy. They were efficient. They bled the clock, controlled the tempo, and gave Garrett and the defense the cushion they needed to finish the job. Myles Garrett, there's another shot floating around from that game. Garrett walking off the field, arms raised, pointing at the sky. Not showboating, just taking it in. It's rare to see a player of his caliber have a moment that personal on such a public stage. But it made sense. Breaking a sack record is one thing. Doing it in a win that signals your team's cultural shift? That's another. You could tell this one meant more. Not just because of the record, but because of what it represented. Garrett wasn't celebrating stats. He was celebrating the start of something. Sanders kept circling back to the word trust. Trust in his line, even after the sacks. Trust in the coaches to let him play through it. Trust in himself to stay grounded. It didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded lived in. Like someone who's taken enough hits to know what it means to keep getting up. He didn't talk like a savior. He talked like a teammate. That tone, combined with the poise he showed late in the game, is what has players like Garrett going out of their way to endorse him. Shedeur Sanders' post-game interview. When asked what he learned most from this game, Sanders didn't hesitate. "You can't control everything," he said. "You just control how you respond." It's a simple answer, but it said everything. That was the defining arc of the night. From being buried by pressure to standing tall in crunch time, Sanders didn't escape adversity. He outlasted it. And in doing so, he earned something much more valuable than a stat bump. The confidence of a locker room that's been waiting for a leader to step up and take charge. Garrett didn't stop with just praise. He challenged the team, too. "We did this once. Now, we do it again, he said. This can't be the peak. This has to be the baseline. It wasn't just a veteran moment. It was a culture-setting moment. For a team that spent years hitting reset, Garrett is making sure this win doesn't fade like the others. And with Sanders stepping up, there's finally someone on the other side of the ball who can match that energy. Someone who wants the standard, not just the spotlight. This game will be remembered not because of the score, but because of the shift, the tone, the turning point. It marked the rise of a new quarterback and the solidification of a defensive legend. It showed what happens when belief spreads through a locker room, when young players rise to the moment, and veterans decide they're not going to wait anymore. For the Browns, this wasn't a fluke win. It was a declaration. And if they stick with what they showed on that field, composure, unity, and leadership, they're not just turning heads. They're turning the page. There was one drive in the fourth quarter that said it all. 3rd and long, crowd roaring. Bengals bringing pressure again. Sanders stood tall, scanned the field, and delivered a dart over the middle for a crucial first down. No panic. No bailout. Just cold execution. Moments like that don't show up in the box score the way touchdowns do, but they stick with players. They change reputations. That single throw shifted the sideline energy, teammates nodding, coaches fist-pumping. You could feel it. It wasn't just about avoiding a collapse. It was about asserting control. In the game's most fragile moments, Sanders didn't flinch. That's what leaders do. They give their team something to believe in, even when everything's stacked against them. Sanders gave the credit right back. The defense kept us in it, gave us chances, and I had to cash them in, he said. He talked about rhythm, about sticking with the plan, and about learning to trust himself even when things start off ugly. And that's what this whole win felt like, a lesson in trust. Trust from Garrett, trust from the locker room, and trust earned by doing the hard thing, getting up, staying calm, and delivering under pressure. There's no louder statement in the NFL than a young quarterback leading a comeback in a high-stakes rivalry game. But Sanders didn't scream it. He showed it snap by snap. Garrett made one thing clear. This isn't just about breaking records. It's about raising standards. We set the tone today. Now we keep it going, he said. You could tell this win meant more than stats or standings. For Garrett, it validated everything he's been building toward. For Sanders, it was a coming-out party. And for the Browns, it might finally be the start of a season they won't have to apologize for. Garrett's leadership, Sanders' grit, and the team's resilience came together like a blueprint. Not just for how to win, but for how to believe again. If this game was any indication, the Browns aren't just surviving anymore. They're evolving. From scrambling in the shadows of the AFC to forging an identity built on fire and resolve. This wasn't a lucky break or a one-off highlight reel. This was a cultural reset. Myles Garrett isn't just a record breaker. He's a tone setter. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's the Browns' next chapter. So if you've been waiting for Cleveland to finally flip the script, now's the time to tune in. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Because if this is the new Browns, the rest of the league better take notes.